Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pails, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure. Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I close it, John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
There it is. It looks so pretty. And it still works. It's just as hard as it's ever been, folks.
Yeah.
Hard hats, steel toe boots, lunch pails. It's Sunday, which means double time when the Celtics come to work. Yes, they clocked out a little bit early today, John. Maybe they left the shift a little bit earlier than they should have.
Yeah.
Which means they actually had to work a little bit longer. Believe it or not, they had to, the starters had to put in a little bit more time, but
yeah.
You leave game one with a double-digit 20-point win. That's coming to work on a Sunday. Celtics go up 1-0 in this series.
Yeah.
And what was your prediction? Series prediction.
Little Fred Flit. So my prediction was Celtics in 4, and then I was like, everyone,
we're on our way.
Stop. Everyone was going to do 4 or 5, and I was like, all right, I'm going to take the contrarian view, which I did. And I'm still not
classic.
I'm still not opposed to the idea that they could relax. Actually, I'll say this. 2 things. We're going to talk about a lot here, okay? The Caleb Martin play for sure.
Oh, my God. Let's talk about that.
We will. Fourth quarter, does it matter? Does it not matter? Differing opinions. I respect both. I'll tell you my take. I want to not care. I don't know that I don't care. I hate slowdown, but at 30-something points,
right,
it's kind of like, how much harder are you going to press it? They did their work in the third. It's not bothering me.
A lot of hard hats in the chat today. Love it.
I don't love it. We'll get Bobby and Josue's take. I believe Sherrod is down there also. Everybody at the Garden for the playoffs.
Gang.
My overarching thought on today, and I agree. They got bored. It doesn't bother me as much. You just would rather. I'd rather see the bench do it than the starters do it. Right. That's all. Just if you're no longer interested in playing, don't play. That's kind of the lesson learned down the stretch too, when they suited up for games and chose to walk through them. That's my series, but it's the playoffs. Joe's not going to mess around and go Geno time to start the fourth quarter and give the other team a shot. He figured he'd get 3 minutes out of his starters. They'd push it to 35 or 40, or at least keep it at 30 and then Geno time it, but they kind of stopped playing. And then they were forced to play late, which is annoying because you had way too. They screwed themselves by playing extra minutes. But in the first round of the NBA playoffs, none of this matters because game 2 is like in 10 days. So like it's stretched out. It's not a big deal. Right?
No, I mean, listen, they won by 20 points. I actually thought that Joe could have went to the bench. The quarter he chose not to, and the starters ended up playing the whole damn game. And honestly, it almost really came back to bite them when Tatum got hit there. Caleb Martin, F you. But yeah, I don't like that, just because again, it's like the PTSD thing, John. You don't want to fall back into those. They did it at the end of the second quarter too. It's like they just decided that they were just gonna watch the clock dwindle down and not play basketball. So,
which is strange,
but when they play, they go up 30. So just play, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's I don't need to see them go up 40 before they see the bench. But also, like, just keep playing like just normal basketball. Don't completely go to sleep.
Yeah, no one likes to see the slowdown.
Right.
But yeah, exactly. No one wants to see it. But what I will say is, I think it was a near perfect game for 3 quarters. And again, so much of it is that make-miss league stuff. You flip last year and you got Caleb Martin shooting 45% from 3 and the Celtics shooting 30 for an entire series. And many people will attribute the entire series really to these kind of outlier statistics where the Heat just shot unsustainably well.
I just don't want to give the Heat like any reason to believe they have a chance in this series. You know what I mean? I don't want them to feel like they have a shot, because realistically they don't. And the way this game started, the way the Celtics went up, the way they did, like that's really the difference between the Celtics and the Heat, is that like they are, and that's why I picked them to win in 4, because the talent differential strength in numbers. The Celtics just from 1 to 8, like there's just no competition right now for a Butler-less Heat. No Jimmy Butler, no Terry Rozier. So like there's no talent there. So don't
No
let
Josh
them
Richardson.
feel
No Josh Richardson.
Don't let them feel like they have a chance, because they really don't. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So I thought, again, the hot start is great. The 3-pointer is great. Like I said, near perfect game to start.
Yep.
Not just to start, but throughout. Even in the beginning, everything was kind of stemmed, and so much of it had to do with I thought my favorite thing in this game was the patience that they showed on offense to get the right shot. I thought if you look at Tatum and Brown's stat lines, we'll bring in Sherrod as well. What's up, Sherrod Blakely, joining us from the Garden?
What's going on?
Looking good, looking sharp. Playoff mode.
Yes.
Sherrod in the building.
So Sherrod,
Jimmy Hardhat.
You know it, baby.
So Sherrod, I'll ask you this question because we were kicking it around. I think it was a near perfect game for 3 quarters. The question to care, not to care about the fourth, we kicked around a little, but let's start with the first 3 quarters. I thought they showed tremendous patience. Everyone was saying there's a Tatum and Brown, the stat lines at the end of the day. I know Tatum got the triple-double, but not wildly impressive, eye-popping stats. I loved how they committed to the extra pass. Miami decided that they were going to double, and not only the Patriots, not only the Celtics pass out of it quickly, they were waiting to see for them to tip their hand, whether they were coming or just stunting to make a decision on what they were going to do. I thought Tatum showed really good patience to kind of wait for it and to see. They tried to do it to Porzingis. They tried to do it to Brown. They tried to do it to Tatum. When they went zone a little bit, again, you've got Porzingis, who's the zone buster, which is why, again, I don't think that this is a trick that Spoelstra is going to be able to go to in his bag very often to disrupt the Celtics. I don't think he could do much to disrupt the Celtics because if they do this and they maintain focus and patience, that's great. I think the only moments they faltered were the few times Tatum and Brown were like, let me get mine, let me go for it. And they didn't do it very often. And there was only a couple of forces. Almost everything else was in the flow, pass to the right place, some great skip passes from Tatum when there was pressure on one side and he was getting trapped on the other end of the court. One great play early when Hauser came in and he kind of saved the Celtics when they went cold. Skips it over to Pritchard. Yeah. Pritchard finds Hauser in the corner. He hits the 3. I thought there was a lot of that all game long. And anytime Miami got anywhere close, Celtics answered with another one and another one and another one by maintaining that discipline.
I think this game was maybe the best playmaking game Jason Tatum has had as a Celtic because there were so many opportunities where old Jason Tatum would have just went ISO and would have looked to attack and try to finish at the rim. But instead, he showed poise and patience that we have not seen as consistently throughout the course of a game of this magnitude before. This was, to me, if you're Jason Tatum, if you're Joe Mazzulla, and you're trying to get Jason Tatum to understand just how important his play is, not just as a scorer, but just as a poised decision maker, rewind this tape. Because I thought this was a TED Talk type game for Jason Tatum. On this is what great players can do when they have been challenged to be more than what they're supposed to be. He's supposed to be a great scorer. His playmaking and rebounding, I thought, they trumped his ability to score in this game. And it's not that he doesn't have the ability. It's just that he made what I thought was a conscious decision that I'm going to do whatever defense that Miami gives me to do to hurt them. If they're going to allow me to just pass to whoever the hell I want to, I'm going to put them in uncomfortable positions, force their defense to do some things they don't want to do. And I'm not looking to shoot. I'm going to find guys. And at some point, that's going to open things up for me to get my own buckets. And to your point, John, I thought him and Jalen, I thought they had a couple possessions, you're right, where they went old school Jason, old school Jalen, I'm going to get mine, Yeah, but you look at the bottom line is those guys combined for 13 assists and 4 turnovers. I don't know too many games where those two guys have both been, just kind of in a great flow. And even though Jalen only had 3 assists, I thought he made a lot of nice hockey passes. And in the fourth quarter, when Miami was starting to make their run, there was a point where Jalen was wide the hell open in the corner. That shot was going to go up 9 out of 10 times. So what did he do? He just dribbled. Then he started to penetrate, kick it to an open teammate. They got a 3. little things like that aren't going to necessarily show the process and the poise that they show. But those of us who've watched this team play and have seen those two guys and their evolution, this was such an important game for them to do the little things. I thought that was what really set them apart from some of the other games we've seen historically from them that were big games. The little things really mattered against a team like the Miami Heat.
I'll give Jalen a lot of love for that too, because praising Tatum's playmaking. In my mind, I'm thinking, you know what? Brown has not he has not gotten fancy about trying to get his. He was just passing, and it wasn't even the hockey assist. He was resetting the offense when it needed to be reset. Wasn't even trying to make plays at times, which is why the assist number isn't there. It's like double came for me. I'm going to reset top of the key. We're going to reverse it and we'll go that way. And that's fine, but it kept the offense moving. The ball didn't stop, which was great. The doubles came rather than try to force the issue and get mine and get to my spot, did it. And I loved that because that's what it is sometimes it's not going to result in assists. It's not going to result in a gaudy stat line, but that's just what had to happen there is sometimes the best play is just give it back to the guy who gave it to you and let him figure out what next to do because that door is closed. They're going to double you off in that corner and we're not going to be able to do anything there. I love that from him. And then each time there was even a teeny bit of stagnation, somebody came in to save the day, whether it was Hauser there in his first run, Derek White, who started cold, all of a sudden he starts hitting bailout threes, Al Horford late, just a little bit of everything where you got contributions that again, it kind of the overarching thing as we talk about is the best version of this team is the one that is not overly reliant on Brown and Tatum to do all of the work. It's the one that recognizes that we have problems everywhere. And again, we're ignoring and burying the lead, which is Kristaps Porzingis is a cheat code. And the Celtics really committed to going through him and running through him early. And that messed Miami up really bad. Every time they were running actions and bringing Porzingis up to the free throw line and he could get the ball there, Miami had no clue what to do to defend that. And it resulted in a ton of open looks, both for Porzingis and everybody else.
Biggest
And
difference.
that's not going to change.
Yeah, biggest
Go ahead,
difference
Jimmy.
It
from
only
last year to
changes
this
if they
year.
forget. It only changes if they revert. That's everyone about the Celtics isn't worried about what they can do when they do it right. Everyone watching the Celtics is worried about what happens next game if Tatum and Brown are like, matchups. Like that's my fear. You see Hero, you see Caleb Martin, you see these guys, and you're like, oh, I'm going to work. They didn't do it today. They resisted that, which was great.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it with the Porzingis stuff. That when the first couple of shots that he took early on in this game, I was just like, just smile across my face. Couple of those threes go down, and you're like, that's what this team was missing last year in the playoffs. That ability to go to a guy like Porzingis when, let's be honest, Sherrod. I know that Tatum. You said this is a game that you're gonna remember from Tatum, but really bad shooting night from Tatum. Didn't get it going really at all from the field. Got to the line 8 times to push his points up to 23, but some of those fouls, I mean, he really shouldn't have even been in the game at that point. So offensively, and you got to give Tatum credit for affecting the game in other ways with the passing, with the rebounding, and credit to him for the triple-double. But this was a team effort on in terms of where the offense was coming from all around it. But I thought Porzingis was the guy early on. And obviously Hauser in that second quarter when things got kind of stagnant and stale and they started to really start to shot chuck, I thought a little bit from 3. And it was almost to a point where the Heat climbed back into it and you said, here we go. But the Celtics, credit to them, they pushed the lead up. But the way Porzingis playing when he can just shoot over anybody that they put on him, basically. And that was to me the big difference in this one. I'll echo what John said about White. I can't remember exactly when he scored, but he was late to the party today. But he really came on, and whether it was White or Hauser, those guys picked it up for like Tatum and Brown, who had good games, but not because they were, lights out from the field. I thought the way Brown started, which he does a lot, the way he started set the tone early in this game, and Celtics came out like gangbusters. What was it, like 15-0 or something crazy like that to start? And Brown had, the 3 to start it, and then he had the dunk, and the place was rocking, and you kind of felt like the Celtics were going to run away with it, which, when you look at the final score, they did. Obviously, there's some runs within the game that, makes it a little closer here and there. But this game, the Celtics winning by 20, just kind of confirmed what I thought and what I've been saying for the last couple months. If the Celtics play the Heat, and again, Butler's not in this game, so obviously that's a big caveat. But the Celtics and the Heat are not in the same stratosphere. They're just not. This should be a 4-game series.
I agree. I mean, Porzingis was great. There's no one should try to take anything away from that. But the reason why I point out Tatum is because Tatum was doing un-Tatum-like things at the start of this game. Yeah. The idea that Tatum is being a playmaker, that's something that you don't expect to see because it's something he does not do very often. And I thought that set the tone for how the rest of the guys responded. Porzingis is the cheat code that Miami and most teams don't have an answer for. If you go small, he'll just shoot over the top, and they can't really go that big because when they go big, it's Bam, and Bam can't guard him. You look at the numbers from the regular season, Bam he shot like 56% when Bam was guarding him this season. So it's not the issue for him is not scoring when Bam is on him, and that's a problem because Miami does not have they don't have an alternative that they can turn to. And again, my concern with the Celtics was understanding and embracing what Porzingis brings to the table, but don't beat it to death. Find that balance between making him a significant part of what you do, but don't try to go down 6, 7, 8 possessions in a row trying to get that mismatch because it's just not going to work. You've got other guys around. You want to find that balance. I thought Joe did a really good job, and Tatum and all those guys did a good job of balancing that, getting him going, but at the same time not forcing it.
Yeah, that's why I've never understood why this team would. I understand wanting to play through certain people. Porzingis is just kind of a ready-made mismatch, particularly if you get him on a switch and he gets the ball and can just kind of seal and turn around and shoot over the top. That's just dad ball, like that's just not fair.
Yeah.
It is. Your son literally can't jump high enough to contest a shot when you're standing still. Like that's legit dad ball cheating stuff.
I miss
but
those
everything
days.
else is, yeah. Everything else is, to me, I don't understand hunting matchups because theoretically, you have a matchup anywhere. Why not just get it to the person in the best position rather than slow the whole thing to a crawl and let a guy set somebody up and allow people to kind of cheat and look over and stunt and see whether they're going to double and allow the guys in the paint to be able to come over and to help. And I hate that. That's the last thing I want to see. I would much, much, much rather see them continue to work it. So this was an extra pass sort of game, which I loved. It's the discipline to do it throughout. I said this early, and everyone's going to go on the hating train here. It's not my biggest. I believe that the Celtics are so much better that it should be a sweep without trying, right? But my biggest fear of the entire series is boredom. Like both what happened in the fourth quarter, and I said the only thing I don't want to see is a game where the Celtics come out and knock down 25 threes in game one and think, oh shit, this is easy, and then come out in game two and are like ice cold and don't adjust in time to be able, and then the other team gets hot. That's the only thing I didn't want to see. So I'm not saying like, wow, this 30-point win, even though it ended up being closer than that, was not what they wanted. But complacency is the only thing that can possibly hurt them against a clearly inferior and wounded opponent like they have here. So I'm putting it out there that like it was great because they were earned, but they also don't always fall. Get out of here.
Interesting comment. I guess Scal said this on postgame, apparently. Or at some point, Scal apparently said that because Zach followed up.
If you're Miami, listen, at some point, if you're Miami, you got to make this, into a much more high-level physicality type of situation because you're not going to finesse the Celtics. They have more talent. They're deeper than you, and the talent that they have is better than yours. So you're going to have to make it a dirty game. You're going to have to muck it up. That's their only shot at making this thing. Forget about winning it. Make it competitive. That's their only shot at making this thing competitive. Because to John's point, go ahead.
No, finish your odd, but I'm cutting John off. But
go ahead. Go ahead. No, finish. You got it, Jimmy. I'm passing the baton to you, Jimmy. Go.
Okay, fine. No,
Jimmy,
what I wanted to say was John's concern is that the Celtics might get bored. If the Heat play that was, in my opinion, that was a dirty foul by Martin. If you watch the replay, he had made no attempt at the basketball. He locked onto Brown, he locked onto Tatum, saw Tatum jump, and just hip checked him. It was a hockey hit. I mean, if they're going to play that way, I think that will lock this, and that's going to make the Celtics lock in more.
Yeah.
They're not going to get bored if they're getting, pushed around or they're getting cheap shotted. I didn't love, I like that Brown, kind of got in the middle of it, but I want to see the Celtics get pissed. And that's what they're going to need to do to avoid, to avoid this going to 6, because like John said, the talent is unquestionable on the Celtics side, but they could get bored and the Heat could sneak one. Like Spoelstra is obviously capable of making adjustments before the next game or before game 3 and, winning a game or two. But if the Celtics get to the point where they're just pissed off, then I don't see that happening.
Yeah. And I want to get more into that because I'm curious everybody's take here. Dirty, not dirty. And we want to get involved there. We're also going to get a little bit, let me see what we have here. We're going to get some post-game reaction coming to momentarily from the Garden. We want to tell you at home briefly while we have you here. Again, it's playoff action, which means, my goodness, the amount of games and the amount of action. I was on the West Coast. It is so disorienting waking up like at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. First time I checked Twitter around 9 a.m., people are tweeting about a basketball game. And I was like, what are people talking about?
Yeah.
It's like 9 a.m. and they're like,
they love it out there though. They love early games.
They're crapping on Orlando. And I was like, oh my goodness. And again, just basketball all day, 4 games yesterday, 4 today. Playoffs are in full swing. You want to get in on the action with America's #1 DFS platform here. Go to Prize Picks, download the app, promo code CLNS, get in on the action. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections and watch the winnings roll in. As we said, more or less, whatever that is, 27, more, less, who knows? Whatever you want to do here. And again, with the balanced attack Celtics, this might be tricky. If they come back here, there might be a lot of less, which might result in a lot of more in terms of victories, which is great. Because again, I think that this is how they play their best. But again, download that app, go to Prize Picks, download it, enter the promo code CLNS. You will get 100% deposit match up to $100. Once again, promo code CLNS when you download the app. Also want to tell you, at home golf season here, you want to get in on some slick attire.
Yeah.
Go to pxg.com/garden, save 10% on all of their really awesome golf apparel. They have amazing clubs too. If you want to go there, you can do a custom fitting and get an insane set of golf clubs as well. It's an up and coming name, really high quality stuff. But again, for some of you guys, looking good might be the best that you can do. And so just head to PXG and check that stuff out. It's probably better than you're going to
for
be
most
golf,
of us.
You can. Most of us can look good. Check out this stuff, the quarter zips, the vests, the pullovers, the polos, pants, really good stuff, breathable, awesome. Check it out, pxg.com, save 10% on all apparel. We do have some sound rolling in here, and I'm going to get to that. And let me see what it's about. We have
Scal said it was shady. He thought the situation was shady.
We have Joe Mazzulla talking about something. I'm not sure exactly what. Amit, producer boy?
You're a producer boy. Let's just find out together as friends.
Let's find out. Joe Mazzulla talking about something.
Together.
That broke out with about a minute to go. Jason just pops right up. Looks like he just wanted to get out of it and, shoot his free throws. What do you see in that moment and just sort of his mindset and approach throughout this game?
His mindset and approach throughout the game was great. I thought he played with great patience. I thought he picked and chose his spots very well. I thought he took what the defense gave him and found the balance of creating for himself and for others. So the fight for that discipline on the offensive end, on both ends of the floor, really is a huge key to this series.
And the team's overall approach, you talked a lot about managing runs, the margins, things like that coming into the series, but also dealing with their physicality and some of the ways they might try to get under your skin. How do you feel like the team as a whole handled those things tonight?
I think there was a 4 or 5 minute stretch where we didn't handle it well, but I thought for the other 42, 43 minutes, that's about That's the recipe. So, the balance is having the humility to do it even better. So 11 turnovers, got them on the sharp margin, didn't foul, and held them to 5 offensive rebounds. So the adjustment is do it better, do it with more physicality, and you got to be ready to do that.
Okay.
There you
John?
have it. What I will say is this. You mentioned possibly awakening them. I kind of would have liked a little bit more reaction there from the Celtics when that happened. I'd like to see a little bit more rallying around. Your star player can't go down like that. Brown went over. When Martin went to reach for him, he swatted him over. I like that. But if Martin doesn't swipe at Brown, he's not getting in his face there. Brown reacted to Martin swiping back at him after he shoved him out of the way. And look, I like at least Brown went in there and said, get away from my guy, which is great. I want to see someone get up in Martin's face there because that's Tatum popping up and going to the free throw line and then Jalen at least stepping in, but nobody else doing anything. Your immediate reaction has to be to circle him and to go get in there and be like, what are you doing immediately there? I'd like to see more of a response from the Celtics. I really did. It was fine. You don't want to get texts. You don't want to get fouls. And like I said, at least Brown got in there and was like, away from my guy, dude. So that's good. I kind of want to see a little bit more. That's all.
It's a delicate balance for them, John.
Some people are saying no, they like it. That's fine. I want the fire.
I just think that because they're so much better than the Heat, they know what's happening. The Heat have to muck it up, and this is one of those ways you can muck the game up. Get Jaylen Brown to pop off and do something, and all of a sudden you've got him and Caleb Martin going at it, and maybe both of those guys are suspended for game 2. Guess who's going to benefit more from if both of those guys are out? Miami. So I understand the need for restraint to some extent, but there has to be. I would like to see a little bit more something too, John. I just don't know what that is. But I understand why they didn't, because at the end of the day, if Jason gets up and he walks away and he's clearly okay, you're going to win this thing by 15, 20 points. Use that moment as motivation for going to game 2. Use that moment where you didn't respond as a way to, okay, we didn't respond at the end of game 1 because we had your asses whipped. Now we're going to come out of game 2, and we're going to beat you even worse than we would normally beat you because we're pissed that you went after our boy. So we're going to make an example out of you. And Caleb Martin, I would make a point out of going at his ass early. If I'm Jaylen Brown and I'm on a break and he's between me and the rim, guess what? Pull out the yellow tape because we got another victim about to be had. I would like to see some of that, but I get your point though. I hear what you're saying.
It's fine.
Hold on.
Maybe it's a boomery 80s take. And
no, it's
I
not.
Get it.
No, so what my hope is that because it was a live action play, I'm hoping that a lot of the Celtics players didn't see it live. Maybe Brown did, and that's why he reacted the way he did. But I have a feeling, the game's over. They're watching the replays. They're seeing the film. They're going to see that blatant, dirty.
They're going to be
reckless.
They're going to be pissed.
And Sherrod, to your point, that is going to carry over into game 2. I want to see them, John. I'm with you. I want to see them react because if you have to point or try to figure out what a concern would be about this team, I think we've all kind of said physicality, maybe some toughness, right? And so when you have that moment where you can show toughness or physicality or show that you're not going to bully us around. And the Heat have been a dirty team. I'll say this. I don't want to go off too on a tangent here. Heat have been one of the dirtiest teams over the last 20 years. Dwayne Wade, one of the sneaky dirtiest players the NBA has seen in the last 20 years, Sherrod. And I know you know it. And we can get Rajon Rondo on this show, and he will tell you the same damn thing. And so this has been something that the Heat have been known for.
I was waiting for the Rajon Rondo comment, Jimmy. I was waiting for that.
Spoelstra knows exactly what he's doing. And in that moment,
do you think he ordered the code red?
I don't know if he ordered it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he said, give them something to think about. I don't think anyone's trying to hurt another player, John, but I think the Heat wanted to make
up the physicality.
Exactly. He wanted to make a statement like, yeah, you got us today, but we're not going to get pushed around by you. You guys aren't going to bully us. But the Celtics have to respond in their own way. So you don't want to see them go crazy and go on, get a bunch of tees or flagrants or all that stuff. But you want to see them respond by being equally as physical.
Look,
and say that's not going to fly.
What did we not like last year? Grant Williams being out of place is the only guy with enough sack to get in Jimmy Butler's face and make a stink. And what was embarrassing about that is Grant's not that guy, and he shouldn't be that guy, but it was also that nobody else sacked up and did it. And that was
Right.
It was
That
like
was my big thing last year. People
it
were
was a
blaming
double
Grant.
whammy. I was
Yeah.
like, Grant had to do it. You guys didn't support him, but he's doing it because none of you guys showed any dog at all, and
Exactly.
you're getting chumped by these guys. So again, nobody's actually going to take a punch in the NBA, so there's nothing to be afraid
You're
of.
either the bully or you're getting bullied.
Just
You know
get
what I
in
mean?
there
Like,
and stick your
it.
mug in there and feel good about it. You feel good about it. That's all.
If Tatum went down very hard, that could have been way worse, and he might be sore tomorrow. You land on your tailbone that way, like might not be something you feel.
And
right
his
away,
head
but
snapped back. I didn't like that
totally.
at all.
No, that was, and again, everyone needs to watch the replay again. I'm sure everyone has seen it.
Everyone
But
needs
the
to
more you watch it,
maroon.
the more you
Yeah.
watch it,
The
the
league
more
will watch that, and there may be a fine coming.
there
his
should
way,
be. There
based
should
on
be.
that
It was
play.
not a basketball
Would not be
play.
surprised if we get. Would not be surprised when they review that game that he gets fined for that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics pointed out that, hey, league, you might want to look at what happened to one of your top 5 players at the end of the game where his team is beating the snot out of the other team, and you got role player Caleb Martin, acting as if he's Charles Oakley 2.0.
Right.
Come on.
I mean,
You're not that deep. He's not that
Tatum always has gripes, regardless of the play or the foul or the non-foul. But he has a legitimate gripe on this one because that was about as dirty as you can get. I mean, he could have broken his arm. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, he put his arms out to brace the fall. Like, that's just not cool. It's worse than trying to contest a 3-pointer and getting into the landing zone that you'll get a flagrant for now. So, what's the difference? The refereeing tonight was sketchy a little bit. There were
It was a little bit
strange calls, strange non-calls.
It
wasn't an issue. It was a blowout, so it didn't really come into play. But
exactly.
Anyways, I think that you're going to see. I shouldn't say I think. I hope that you're going to see a Celtics team that, to your point, Sherrod, has a little something extra for Caleb Martin the rest of this series. If he thinks he can just drive to the paint, he should think twice every time he does.
And the sad part is that if you're the Celtics, it's not like they have a player that you could basically retaliate it and be overly physical. I mean, you want Tyler Hero on the floor. 4 for 13, 11 points, because you got guys just place him straight up that you can limit him. Bam Adebayo, he's going to get his, but you know what? Is there anyone else that you feel like is a villain on that team that you feel that there's enough vitriol that you feel that you need to, that's a guy we need to make a statement to? There's no Jimmy Butler, there's no Terry Rozier, and you've just got Bam and Tyler Hero, who does not normally play well against the Celtics. So it's like, I think part of the Celtics mindset is, and I think Joe Mazzulla has talked about this often, all we got to do is be who we are. And if we do that, we're going to win every game. On a bad night, we'll win by 12. On a bad game, we'll win by 12. And this will be over in 4 games. He's not going to come out that specifically, but that's the reality of this series. If they simply play the way that they're capable of, and they don't even have to play perfect, just play the type of basketball that you are accustomed to playing, you're going to win every game by double digits comfortably.
And
there's nothing Miami can do about it.
I want Caleb Martin. I want Caleb Martin on the floor for 75% of.
Well, let's talk about Caleb
on the floor. I mean, lay it out on the floor.
Yeah, let's talk about Caleb. Let's talk about Caleb Martin in another way. He sucked.
Yeah,
he sucked.
Yeah, he did suck. He's not the Caleb Martin last year.
So if you're a Celtics fan,
one dirty play. I like that stat line. Look at that stat line.
Yeah,
4 points, 2 of 6, 1 dirty play. So one dirty play and 0 3-pointers hit.
Yeah. So anybody watching here probably had the same vibe watching Caleb Martin suck at basketball, because Caleb Martin kind of sucks at basketball. And then remembering back to the fact that Caleb Martin basically single-handedly ended your championship dreams last year, and wondering God, how did that happen?
Yeah.
I know
you're later wondering.
Yeah. I know, and again, it's very easy. I go back and forth with this because I think you make your own luck to an extent. but certainly the Heat shooting the way they did in the playoffs and the Celtics not, part of that was an outlier performance on both ends, and that's what led to that result. But it's just bananas that Caleb Martin did what he did when he's such a league average jag, So he did nothing until the end of the game there, as you said, one dirty play in the 29 minutes. But a guy they absolutely need to do something, Tyler Herro, also did a whole lot of nothing. And a lot of that had to do with Drew Holiday.
And White. Yeah, both those guys. He does not.
Holiday was up in his shit all first half. And again, he did miss a couple of open threes as well, a couple of looks that, he might make. And he's a contested shot maker too. So sometimes good defense can only take you so far. He can do that. But Holiday was bumping him, getting in his way wherever he was trying to go a ton early on. And I think that took him off his game early and he never recovered.
You saw the boogeyman. Drew Holiday is here for one reason, and that's it. Shut down whoever he's out there guarding. And Tyler Herro's Tyler Herro does not want. This is one of those. I've said this all year about the Celtics. Opposing guards see, the Celtics coming up on the schedule, and they do not want to deal with Holiday and White guarding them for 48 minutes. They just don't, because those are two elite defenders. I mean, they're talking about Derek White on the broadcast as a potential defensive player of the year candidate. That's the type of year he's had. And Holiday, it goes without saying, the raps he can put on players. And Herro, he can get hot. I mean, you can't forget about him, but he's not the type of player that's going to, I feel like he's not the type of player that's going to, outwork the defender and, really, get to Holiday. It's just not going to happen. This is going to be a tough series for him.
Yeah, and we're not even talking about, Jaylen Brown, who's maybe the most improved defender on this team, a guy that has played well enough at that end of the floor where you can legitimately talk about him. And when you're going through, who are the handful of really good wing defenders in the NBA? And Jaylen Brown is probably at the end of that conversation. But the fact that he's even played well enough to be on the cusp of that conversation says a lot about his growth. So Tyler Herro is going to have a hard time getting going. And the thing about it is this, even if they get him going, who else is going to get going? Because you can't, because the Celtics, the way they're built, one guy is not going to get it done. And Bam Adebayo, Bam's not that guy because he's going to get some of that Porzingis play. And that's a problem. The Celtics, they just have too many weapons, and Miami does not have enough defenses for all those weapons. And that's why, again, I said from the beginning, as soon as we found out this was a matchup, I expect a sweep. Now, that doesn't mean every single game is going to be like this one, because I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Celtics, the next couple of games are going to be much closer. I think the Celtics are probably going to win by somewhere between 5 to 12 points. I don't anticipate they'll be up by 30, 32 points like they were in this game. But they're so much better and they're so much deeper than Miami that even if they're not playing their best basketball, they're still going to wind up winning. So it's a matter of, when, not if, the Celtics will close out this series.
Yep. We're talking a little bit more about Caleb Martin. Here's we have it? I had it and I lost it. Here's Joe Mazzulla specifically on the Martin situation.
Come on, Joe, give me something.
At his head. What were you thinking as he was going down? I know Boston was probably collective sigh right there. And have you spoken to him? He did look like he hit his head a little bit.
I was just thinking, I was waiting to see what he was going to do. I was kind of excited about the whole situation. So I enjoyed watching it.
What about in terms of how he feels?
He's fine.
Okay. He enjoyed watching.
Translation. I was hoping somebody was going to whip Caleb's ass in that moment.
Well,
I was kind of excited.
You know what?
Joe, I feel
Say it.
Something not great is going to happen to Caleb Martin in game 2. Caleb Martin is going to go in for a layup, and he's going to find himself in the third row. Somebody's going to do it.
Mazzulla doesn't want guys shooting the ball after the whistle's out. You think he wants guys knocking out, playing that's why I would be surprised if there's no reaction, or at least meeting them at their physicality and level. I'm talking about the Celtics meeting the Heat, because
It
you
kinda
gotta know that Mazzulla, this is a guy that does jujitsu before bed. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a guy that just wants to sing kumbaya and move on to the next thing. I just
The
can't see
fact
it
that he said that he was excited about this, Jimmy, is a little scary to me. If I'm
I believe,
when,
yeah.
that makes me a little uncomfortable, because when something like that happens to your best player and your response is, "It made me excited," you kind of know where he's coming from. You kind of
Right.
know what he's thinking at that moment, and you kind of know that if they didn't respond accordingly in the game, there's a high probability they're going to do it in the next game. So if I'm Caleb Martin, keep the head on the swivel, young fella. Keep the head on the swivel.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Joe Mazzulla has been told, we think, by the league to not go out there and block any shots, but he has not been told to not do jujitsu on
Right.
opponents. So we'll see.
If it's
Next time we'll ask him.
I have to.
Next time he's going to put Martin in a chokehold, and then people ask him after the game. He's like, "I always put people in chokeholds.
Yeah.
Like,
Why
I've
wouldn't
been
you?
doing that all season. I always
Yeah.
do that.
If you
I
don't
tell
put
my
somebody in
team
a chokehold, they could put you in a chokehold.
I tell my team to do that.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
always been
that's what
doing
you're
that.
supposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And again,
I'm excited that Joe's excited. That makes me excited, because
Yeah.
this is playoff basketball. This is
How do
playoff
we
basketball.
think? Yeah, how do we think Joe did in his first playoff action?
Solid.
There was
Solid.
nothing to adjust. There was nothing to adjust
Yeah.
to, right?
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
nothing Miami did worked for very long.
this is a hard one to judge him on, just because, to your point, not only was there very little to adjust, but I mean, your guys played. I mean, if anything, your guys executed at both ends of the floor exactly how you wanted them to. Tatum used his ability as a playmaker to set other guys up and still wound up getting his share of points. Jalen kept the turnovers down, made a lot of, I thought, really smart basketball plays, basketball decisions, when to shoot, when to pass, when to just play solid defense. Drew Holiday ratcheted up. I thought he stepped his defensive game up a little bit, and they needed that to just end any thoughts that Miami might have of pulling off an upset. Drew Holiday's defense, I think, really stifled that. And Porzingis, as we talked about many times, he's the cheat code. And they went to the cheat code early and often. In Miami, the first game is kind of a filling out game. What can they do to at least try to address that? And I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything that Miami did that makes Joe Mazzulla or anyone think that, man, we might have to use Porzingis a little bit differently in game two. Or, man, we got to tinker with something. And if you don't have to tinker, why? Why would you do it, especially if it's working? So
that's the thing, is like,
right.
as we say, Sherrod, it's the whole, like, only the Celtics can beat the Celtics. This whole, like, Spoelstra can expose them, blah, blah, blah. This could happen. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. And again, I know we were out of stuff to talk about. If you're not going to talk about which potential first round matchup might present the greatest challenge, you were out of shit to talk about, months ago regarding this team. But again, you're looking at everything like, okay, what could mess them up a little? And really the answer keeps coming back to really only they can, right? Like, if they get into old habits with the ISO ball, stopping the ball, slowing things down, yeah, he's settling for the first shot. Absolutely it can. But I don't think Miami would do – I don't think – if the Celtics execute or play a game like they played today, I don't think Miami has a defense. They just have to hope more shots fall, right?
For sure.
Switch things up, vary it quarter by quarter. But I mean, I think he tries to, looking at whichever matchups, can I try a little zone here or whatever? I could see going zone and every single time Porzingis isn't on the floor. But again, when you've got good spacing and you've got Hauser and you've got Pritchard out there, that's not going to work for you there either when those guys are knocking him down. It was great watching Pritchard. When Pritchard hit his first and then Hauser came in bombs away, I was
awesome.
like, that's it. That's the end of it.
That was perfect timing. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, when Pritchard is grabbing offensive rebounds and putting them back up like he's playing against Oregon State back in the day, that's when I'm like, oh, shit. Miami is in trouble. If Peyton Pritchard is not just grabbing offensive rebounds, but he's putting them back up for buckets. That's a problem if you're Miami.
I thought the Celtics hit a little bit of a lull, like end of the first, second there. And Hauser came in, hit those threes, stretched that lead back out. and kind of just kept the Celtics, like kickstarted them again. That's what you need from your bench unit. And we talked about it the last couple months here. Has Hauser earned a spot in the playoff rotation? And we all on the show said, yes, absolutely, he has. I actually thought maybe he should have played a little bit more tonight. Ended up with 13 minutes. Maybe toss him in there in the fourth when I think if you
Jaquez went at him a little.
Yeah. I don't have anything.
You're
crazy.
muted, Sherrod.
I don't have much to say that Mazzulla could have done better today. I mean, they won by 20. I thought he used timeouts when he needed to. We've certainly seen situations where he hasn't, and we've all been screaming at the TV that didn't really have those situations tonight. You don't want to see the game get as close as it did in that fourth quarter. I'm not really going to blame Mazzulla on that. I just think that was the Celtics doing what they do sometimes, playing the clock. I would have probably liked to see him pull the starters a little bit sooner. Again, avoid the situation of a dirty Heat team doing something to your star player if he's maybe not in the game in that situation. Now, I know that it got close enough where you probably didn't want to obviously unload the bench, but that's probably the only thing I could have done differently is maybe gone to a bench player or two in that fourth quarter.
I was just gonna say, Jimmy, to your point about Hauser, Jaime was giving him problems.
Mm-hmm.
That was a matchup that Miami, and I guarantee you, when we go to game 2, when they're on the floor together, they are going to ISO that matchup because it was one that I thought they had some success with. So I do worry about that, and that's why to me it's important when Sam gets on the floor. Sam doesn't really have time to just kind of warm up and get going. He needs to come in and start knocking down shots early and often, just so that can buffer to some extent what's going to happen at the other end of the floor.
So 4 or 6 for him. I mean, he did his job, Sherrod, right? 4 or 6 from 3.
Absolutely.
Gave the team that spark they needed. I mean, he was a plus tonight. He was a +5. But I mean, again, I think that a lot of that had to do with the fact that he just didn't get a lot of burn, and that's obviously in that second half there. But I think listen, we were wondering what the playoff rotation was going to look like, Sherrod. This is pretty much it, right? I mean, they went 8 deep tonight. I kind of see that, and moving forward, you might get obviously it's a little bit matchup based depending who they'll play in the second round. Knock on wood, but this is kind of it. Pritchard got his 24 minutes, which is right around what he's been doing, and Horford gave you 10 and 7 tonight, which I think is and he was in that second half. Horford had some big plays, and he was physical in the paint, grabbed some big boards, had a nice little turnaround hook. So he's given you that bench production that you need. And along with Pritchard and Hauser, I think this team is 8 deep. And compare that to any other team in this playoffs, 8-man rotation. It's hard to find a better one.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, and I think the minutes that we saw Hauser get, the minutes that we saw Pritchard get, I would not be surprised if we see those flip-flop where, Hauser might play 20 or so minutes and Pritchard might be down to 15, just depending on the opponent, how the game goes. But this was, I don't know if they're going to deviate much from what we saw tonight in terms of rotation. And I don't know if there's any reason why they would want to.
Maybe you start Tillman in game 2, just get a little, push around a few people, get him in and out.
It's very much the hockey mentality, right? Like you change out that
Sharon
fourth liner.
Thornton, come here, Sharon Thornton. Where you at?
You tweak the fast skating, fourth liner for the kind of like I said, I made the reference earlier. You're Pat Maroon in there, and you're like, okay, I'm here just in case. Could you see X-Men coming in and a little bit of frontier justice here? Yeah, maybe. Here's Caleb Martin reacting to his totally not dirty, not intentional, not instructed play. We'll see. I have no idea what he said, but here he is.
Nothing. I mean, he's just hard foul. I'm trying to take a boy's teammate. I don't know. I try to go help him up. Obviously, I got I just heard him hit the floor. I didn't know. Obviously, I know I hit him pretty hard, but momentum was carrying me. I think I got pushed into that direction. But hard foul. Try to pick him up. That's just what it is. Jimmy on the floor. I'd have done the same thing, I'm sure. So, just what it is.
Just what it is. Just what it is.
They were talking about Jalen slapping his hand away, I guess. But yeah, he's lucky that's all he did. He's lucky that's all he did. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it again and see if he actually did. If he's saying he got pushed into Tatum. I don't know if that's true. I think he kind of gave him a little hip check. So, league will take a look. But I don't think that's the end of it. I really don't.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah. Speaking of which, a lot of commentary here in terms of the dirtiness of Miami, whether or not that was called for, whether he got
What was called for?
Whether or not that was instructed to do so.
Okay.
Another thing that people have taken issue with is Bam Adebayo, who many in the chat believe has never set a legal screen in his life. And Derek White, might have been on the receiving end of one of those. And White talking about it in the locker room, Bobby Manning in there, talking to Derek about that and then what happened late in the game.
Derek, first off, how are you feeling? It looked like you took a big hit at one point going around a Bam screen there. How'd you come out of that?
Yeah, I'll be all right. I'll be all right.
What do you think at the end of the game there, a little skirmish, Jason after the foul, just sort of darts down the other way, Jalen getting into it a little bit there. What was just sort of your guys' reaction to that
Bobby,
play?
the only one there today?
Yeah, first it's good to see JT's good. And
He only sends us his questions.
KP and JB got his back, and you gotta love that.
That's as fiery as Derek White gets right there.
That's
Sherrod, you're muted.
Yeah.
I'm not getting fined. I will not say anything that's going to get me fined. I got kids. Come on now.
You are not taking away from their Christmas fund. Yeah,
exactly. I want that Drew Holiday money. That's what I want. I want a holiday contract. You want a holiday? No. I mean, I think if the game were a little bit tighter, I think there might be a little bit more anger and vitriol on the Celtics part. But it's just like, oh, look, they're trying to be physical. They're down big. Let's move on.
I want to hear Jalen Brown. I really want to hear what Jalen Brown has to say about it, since he obviously had.
Well, he was the one that responded. Right. He was the one that actually did some semblance of a retaliation in response to it. But Miami, it's just desperation, man. I mean, they know the same thing that we do, that they should not win a game in this series.
Yeah.
They're not deep enough. They're not talented enough. And as much as we love Spoelstra and all the things that he's doing, his ability to maximize the most with whatever he's given, he doesn't have diddly squat to work with. This is not a good team. This is not a team that should be able to knock off the top seed. Oh, damn.
Yeah, Thanasis Manning.
Yes.
Thanasis Manning ends careers. That's a fact.
Yeah. I don't think Martin's doing that if Thanasis Manning is on the bench, because he knows what would be in store for him.
No,
he's out like an attack dog. Yep.
Yeah. So I am curious. We didn't get Sherrod's take on it, and I don't know that it mattered, but. We talked about it briefly.
It always matters to get Sherrod's take, first of all.
Sherrod, you got blurry all of a sudden. I don't know what happened to you.
I don't know why.
You blurred out. All right.
Oh, he's gone. What were you going to ask him? Oh, he's back.
I was going to ask him whether or not the fourth quarter bothered him at all, because it was I don't want to care, and I don't think I do care. And I think anybody's going to get bored. Up 30 and they did their work. They got their 30-point lead. This game was over. But you brought the starters out to do a job, and that job was play long enough and maintain this lead so you don't have to play the rest of the game. And they kind of screwed themselves by not playing, which is really more, it hurts them than anything. But you did have Tatum hitting the deck late in a meaningless, sequence, and things that you just want to avoid. At that point, you wanted it to be Geno time for the last 9 minutes. So yeah, they stopped playing completely. They stopped running any semblance. They were walking up and down the court, and it got annoyingly close, but you never felt that it was in true jeopardy. Does it bother you at all that happened?
Well, it bothers me, but only to the extent that they just didn't seal would have been a perfect game. I mean, they played. I mean, it's a 40-minute game, and they probably played about 40, 41 really good minutes. And that's, normally that's going to be enough to win, and certainly for them it was enough to win by 20. But yeah, I would have liked them to see a little bit more poise in that stretch. But again, I understand why Joe Mazzulla is planning to really tight to the vest and just going with those top 8, because you want to make sure that you have your best players on the floor every single minute of the game. And there's a major drop off from your top 8 to the 9, 10, 11, 12 guys. Joe knows that. And so I don't think we're going to see a lot different Celtics team in late game situations like this. If they're up by 25, 30 points, you're still going to see those guys out there probably to like maybe the 4-minute mark. If that, just to make sure that they give this Miami Heat team no hope. And if they want to be giddy because they were able to trim a 32-point deficit down to a 20-point loss, they're more than welcome to jump on that mantle and ride that into game 2. But it's not going to matter
Fool's gold.
The Celtics showed you when the game was actually mattering, when the game had something at stake in the first, second, and third quarter. What happened? You got your asses kicked. Got kicked on the boards, 3-point shooting, post-ups, transition, you name it. The Celtics were the better team. And for Miami, again, it is, John, it's fool's goals if you think that what happened in the fourth quarter is somehow going to all of a sudden be just the catalyst you need to get back, because you don't have the horses to run this race beyond 4 games.
Yeah. I want to look at a couple things beyond, and while we're waiting for, see if Bobby and or Josue get on here, but couple stats that I think are really important that go beyond just the shots. Okay. And you're always going to have higher assist numbers when the shots are falling. And yeah, maybe it was, it was Joe loves that to get that 3-point number up, up around 40. I mean, he took 49, just the amount that they took over the Heat. He's always going to like that. But a couple of stats I loved. Only 3 first half turnovers was outstanding. That's one area where, and especially in the playoffs where the Celtics have had those issues. And it always comes down to the more ISO ball and the more people dribble, particularly Brown and Tatum, the more they're putting the ball on the ground, the more you're getting those live ball turnovers, the more that results in transition buckets. That did not happen in this game at all. And then the offensive rebounding. We've seen the Celtics get beat up on the offensive glass, only gave up 5 today. They had 10 of their own. Did not lose the rebounding battle in this game, which is great. Miami's not boasting a lot of size here, so it's not a team you're worried is going to punk you there. But both of those things, you talk about how can you play a clean game and still lose, or how can you shoot the ball well and lose? The high turnovers and getting murdered on the boards. Those two things aren't happening. They can survive. They could have survived a mediocre to a below average shooting game and still won this one. Because they're not giving away they weren't giving away freebies. No freebies at all. No transition, no turnovers, no points off turnovers, and nothing off the offensive glass.
And that's the problem for Miami. And it just, again, it reinforces what we've been saying all along, that the Celtics' biggest competitor in this series is the Celtics. If they're going to lose games, it's going to be more so because of something that they did not do that had very little, if anything, to do with the Heat than it is the Heat all of a sudden coming up with this magical, mystical strategy that just, confines Tatum and Brown and Derek White and Al Horford and Drew Holiday. That's not going to happen. And the Celtics, I think it goes back to just, frankly, their focus. This is a different kind of locked-in Celtics team than we've seen in the past. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they came so close a year ago. And obviously, they're not going to talk about that. But you can tell just the level of focus has a lot to do with missed opportunities of the past and not wanting to repeat that.
Yeah. And outside of – go ahead, Jimmy.
I was going to say, you know what, Sherrod? And the other thing is this. For the last, month, we've just been saying, what's team's going to show up game 1 in the playoffs? Because there's been about 2 months worth of games that mean nothing. They locked up the 1 seed in the East. Then they locked up the 1 seed in the NBA. And, guys were at that point in and out of the lineups, resting guys here and there. They'd lose one and you'd say, well, does it matter? It only matters in the playoffs when the slate is wiped clean for every team. It means just as much for every team. And I think it should be comforting for Celtics fans that watch today to say, okay, this team looks a hell of a lot like the regular season team we saw, and the way that they played, a dominating performance, a 20-point win. So I think a lot of those fears of who are we going to see game 1 of the playoffs when the last 2 months of basketball really hasn't mattered much to these guys? Are they going to be able to, ratchet up the intensity and be able to match the other team's intensity, like a Heat team that let's be honest. Yeah, they are missing two of their really important guys, Butler obviously being the main one there. And so talent's always going to be a huge part of that, but you still have to show up. It's the NBA, and we've seen it. If you don't show up, you will get beat. And so I think that they quelled a lot of concerns by showing up today and playing the way they did.
A couple things, and I think it's worth talking about. How can it flip, right? How can you see what you saw here? We've had game one performances in the past where you're like, it's over, this other team can't compete, and then you see a totally different setup the next day, the next game, and things look totally different. You're not really sure why. I think sometimes it's just as simple as looking at the shots falling. But you want to talk about a couple other places Celtics didn't thrive. Points in the paint. They didn't get a lot. Miami did, and they had to because their threes weren't falling, but they did get into the paint. You had Jaquez getting in there when he wanted to, fairly regularly. I thought set a pretty good tone for them. 44-24 points in the paint. Celtics also, and again, Miami didn't get a ton in transition. The Celtics only had 6 fast break points. So Celtics played a pretty slow, methodical game where they played and took their shots from the outside, worked the ball, worked it in the half court. You'd still like to see a teeny bit more pace than what they played with today. I would like to see them press it a little bit more. Even off misses, they wouldn't do it. And oftentimes you see, even if the guard, whoever's got the ball, is working it up the floor, oftentimes you see Tatum kind of like, well, I'll get there and we'll get into our sets and we'll do our thing. I'd still like to see them push it a little bit more because you do want to get out. You do want to get running. You do want to get some easier buckets. I want to see a little bit more there as well. But again, being nitpicky here, it's just when you show up and the next game is totally different than the first game and you wonder why, these could be some of the things that factor in. So I don't want them to get complacent and just rely entirely on a three-point shot. You want to see them continue to pressure Miami. You want to see them get into the paint a little bit. You want to see them run. You want to see them get some more points, drive and kick. A lot of this stuff was worked around the perimeter with patience or giving it to somebody at the elbow, waiting for the double to come, swing. Did it feel like there was a lot of drive and kick today? Not maybe not as much as I'm used to seeing. I'd like to, I might have to go back and watch it again, but I don't think they tried desperately to attack. They were just looking for pretty much the best three that they could get or the best open look.
I didn't think they forced it. I think
wasn't forced at all. I thought they played with tremendous patience.
Like but when they were met with, when they were met in the paint or and that's again, John, I think why some of the turnovers were lower too. Is because they just passed it. They did pass it back out. I saw them swinging the ball. They got a lot of open looks tonight. I mean, not all of them fell, but they still shot 45% from three. That is the concern though, because in this team, we've seen it. When the threes don't fall, I mean, that sounds very simple. When the threes don't fall, are they able to adjust their offensive style and be successful still? Because if they just
don't do this, this is who they are. This is how they play.
Right.
This is how they've been successful. But
when they don't, we see what happens. And that's the scary thing about the Heat, right? Is that the Heat or Spoelstra can try to make you do the thing you don't want to do. And that's really their only chance because they don't have enough talent to just beat you going their best versus your best. They need to basically put you in an uncomfortable position, a place you don't want to be, and then attack that way. So the Celtics, on the opposite end, that's where Mazzulla and his assistant coaching staff need to make their adjustments. But I think to your point, John, they didn't. I will say they did get to the line a lot more than the Heat. If you're a Heat fan, you're saying, how do we only get to the line 6 times? You need to get to the line more. You need to be more aggressive in that sense. So yeah, they scored more in the paint, but the Celtics weren't, hacking them or anything like that. So take that as you will.
Yeah, no, they were. Again, it was a near perfect game for the first 3 quarters, as we talked about. They did everything right, played with tremendous patience, worked the ball, got great looks. They went down. That was it. But not a lot to complain about. You're just wondering if it's one of those, if the next game the shots don't fall at the same clips and Miami's start to. But again, it's a 7-game series. This isn't. They don't have the horses. The only matchup here you're worried about is Spoelstra, right? Like there's nothing on the other side there, certainly without Butler, that you're worried at all that the Celtics that's going to possibly knock the Celtics off their path here. And again, it should be 4 games, and that would be nice. And get your rest and get moving. Again, you can't have a better path than the Celtics have right now. It's almost embarrassing between the injuries everywhere, and the Cleveland Orlando second round matchup where you might get that. Quick work of this team is what you want to have happen here. So keep the foot on the gas. Bobby Manning setting up. We'll get Bobby's take a little bit before we wrap things up here. As soon as he's ready, Bobby, give me a thumbs up. We'll bring you on here.
Oh yeah.
Yes, no, maybe so. Playoff Bobby, give
That's
us
a
thumbs
thumb.
up.
I just saw a thumb.
What's up, Bobby?
Going. You guys got me?
We got you. What are your takeaways?
Are you part of the he looks like he's part of the wall.
Yeah, I'm blending in.
Blending in, dude. Anyways, go on.
I like this
camo.
game. I like this game. I didn't love it at first. I didn't love the runs they gave up throughout. 15 at halftime felt too small for how well they shot. And overall, it felt like the Heat stayed within arm's length with their physicality and rebounding at times and aggressiveness going to the basket. Looked like the bench wasn't going to work early. They stay in the game and end up hitting their shots, which I think was important given the messaging Joe's had on trusting them and keeping them involved. And Jason Tatum had an up and down game too, despite the triple-double, but I do like his focus on playmaking in a game like this. So you don't love this performance. I think it's a kind of game that can keep the Heat engaged and hopeful that they're capable of competing in the series, despite being down by 30 and losing this one by 20, if you can believe it or not. But I do feel like Miami competed well, and John, me and you were the only ones who gave them much of a fighting chance in this series, and I do think today showed you have to take them seriously. Even when you go up by 20, 30, they're never going to stop playing. And I know runs happen and shots fall, and that's basically what happened in the second and fourth quarters there. But you have to, I think, sustain those runs a little bit better to not give Miami those stretches that keep them in the game. And they got those throughout this one, I felt like.
John, you're muted.
Oh,
Thanks,
man,
my dog.
That's me.
Thanks, my dog.
I wasn't gonna say it. What's up? What's up, Josue? You're here
Josue.
I thought that was me. I thought I couldn't hear John.
Oh no, it's not you.
No,
Not this
but
time.
we can hear you, Josue, and we love to hear your take on what the hell just happened.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bob, I thought the things that Bobby just said were pretty on point, man. I just think when the Celtics are making franchise history for the most three-pointers made in the playoff game, like it's a good thing when you look back on it, but you wonder how many times you could pull this off throughout the course of the best-of-7 series. And look, I got the Celtics winning this series in 5 games, but I don't think it's going to be looking like this all the whole time. You know what I mean? I think they're good for one of these blowout wins, I should say. And I thought that today would be that matchup. But yeah, I just think the Miami Heat, I mean, the way they were able to get rid of the deficit as quickly as, other teams would, especially considering they're shorthanded. They don't have someone like Jimmy who you can pick on matchup wise and take advantage of that. Tyler Hero, I mean, maybe he has one of those games, a couple of those games in this series where he really dominates, but today just wasn't that game for him. And I think it's going to take them a bit to adjust, but they're pretty comfortable out there in terms of just withstanding those huge runs by the Celtics and fighting
They're
right
not
back.
scared.
Sure. They never got it down to, 3 points or whatever. It was never a 1-possession game, but I mean, before halftime, it was a 2-possession game, and it happened in a hurry. And I think that's something that's going to repeat itself throughout this series. Yes, the Celtics are the dominant team, but the Heat have enough firepower to come back from those deficits and hang around a bit. Can they close out a game? I still think they have 1, maybe 2 in them, but I mean, today didn't make me feel any better about my prediction. I still have Celtics in 5, but it's not going to look like this every game.
Yeah, and you'd be okay with 10-0, 8-2, small runs like that. But the Heat went on a couple big ones, especially that fourth quarter one that cut it from 31 to 14 in 7 minutes. The opening stretch there, 17-2. You feel like it's going to be a runaway game, and you're like, uh-oh, is this the sweep? Is this the runaway dominance that many predicted going into the series? But the Heat get right back even after that. I forget what the run was exactly after that, but they pull right within 5 by the end of the quarter.
I don't know. I don't get that. That wasn't my vibe at all. I thought runs happen, and there were a couple of
Big
dips, but in almost every case, yeah. I mean, in almost every case, Celtics stamped it out quick. It would go 12 back to 17 or 18, and then the third quarter was just over. I never at all.
Like-
with the exception of a teeny bit of a dip there in the first quarter, and then just stopping playing there for a minute or so, 2 minutes in the second quarter, there wasn't much else I was worried about.
Like
you
in
know?
even in that fourth quarter when the Heat came back, like White was big for them there. He had a big three. I mean, you had Horford chipping in too. It did feel like I never felt like that. I never felt remotely close to the Celtics losing this game today. It was
never, ever.
Some bits of frustrating stretches, but I mean, what are we talking about here? They won by
Like
20. They were up by 30 plus. Like
you hit 53s in this game. So what happens when you don't do that? That's what we're looking at here. And I do like the Heat's ability in this game to attack mismatches, to get to the rim at times. I thought Hawkins was fantastic, and Bam did what he could to produce offense, even hitting a three at a certain point. So I'm just looking at them like I have from the start and saying they can stay with you in these games, and they're going to. They're not going to give up in any of these games. So you can't, on the other side, sit back with a 25-point lead even and just say we're done. And that's what they did in the fourth quarter too a little bit. I know DeLon Wright comes out and hits 5 threes, which you're not expecting. And some other guys got hot there at different points. Jovic had a better game than I expected. And, Highsmith never really got going too much, which they're going to need on that side. But isn't this more than what you expected from that team? Down Butler, down Rozier. I mean, they are just depleted completely of talent there. And I thought they hung in this game pretty well despite losing by 20.
I don't think they hung in this game.
Not at all.
I think they made some runs. Probably they scored 94 points, like well below the average. They lost by 20, and I think the Celtics were playing with their food a little bit in this one, like we've seen them do a bunch of times in the regular season.
Yeah.
If I'm Miami, what are they supposed to do?
They definitely punch back, though. I think that's what Bobby's trying to say.
Really? If I'm Miami, I'm demoralized.
They punched this a little. They punched back a little bit.
God.
But
if I'm Miami, I'm like, what do we do? What are we gonna do here?
John, you sure? Demoralized?
What could they have done better? What could Miami have done better? They lost by 20.
I feel like we watched two totally different games. I don't have.
But John, we're grading on a scale. One team has Jovic and
I know, but I don't have
an starting lineup. And
why are we grading on a
any
scale?
point did I?
Because one team's the 64-win best team in the league, Jimmy, and the other team is starting a rookie and
exactly. So what are you concerned
in
about?
the G League all last year. I'm not concerned about anything. I'm just telling you what happened.
Yeah, man. No one's concerned.
Well,
watching this game did not feel to me like, well, Celtics let
you
them
didn't feel
in.
Like this game was competitive.
Not in any way competitive.
So
you switching the sweep, John? I mean, you were with me saying this was going to be 6
Yeah,
games.
I'm just messing around. I just do that to get people going. I'm saying, Bobby, the reason I said that the Heat might take a game or two is the Celtics might get complacent, get comfortable, sit back, think all of it. I hated the idea of all the threes falling in game one sort of game because that might.
That's what I mean.
I didn't want that, but throughout this game. No, because the spot to have gotten comfortable would have been the third quarter with a 15-point lead, and that's where they stood on their business. They got serious there, and they're like, let me show you everything we can do now. And they just put the hammer down. So, yeah, 15-point lead that you allowed them to creep back to 15 at the end of the half and then just absolutely just stomping on them in the third. To me, this was a clinical win by the Celtics. Not at any point in time did I feel like the Heat remotely threatened. Never at any point.
They mostly took care of the little things in this one, the Celtics did. I think Heat only had 5 offensive rebounds, which was a key. Sherrod and I talked about going in. You limited some of their role guys. I think you kept the ball in Hawkins' and Bam's hands for quite a bit of this game and Hero and dared them to beat you at times. And they made shots at different points during their run. So that's going to happen. That was Joe's message after 2. He felt like there were 4 or 5 minutes where they didn't manage the game well. But otherwise, they did there. And I certainly love the way they handled some of the physicality, get under your skin, the Bam screen, knocking White down, and the tussle at the end there. I love Tatum actually just shooting over to the other side while Brown and Porzingis handled things there, knocked down the free throws, put the game away. They pretty much handle business here. And, that's how Porzingis described it too. When someone asked him about him and Bam's matchup, he said, this isn't personal. This isn't me versus him. This is just business. And they're taking care of business here in a game like this. You look at a 20-point game, you make your threes. Some guys who started slow heated up as the game went on. So I think mentality-wise, there's a lot to like out of this game from the Celtics standpoint. But when Tatum was on the floor, this is what, a 3-point game?
Here's that KP soundbite, dude. Since you mentioned it, we were talking about that. Here you go.
Matchup against Bam personally.
No, this is business. This is not. We of course we want to stop him as much as possible, but understanding they're gonna play through him all the time. He's gonna be involved in all the situations. I don't care about him. I care about our team and what we're trying to achieve.
Don't care about that, Mom.
And this is not one-on-one me against Bam. This is Celtics against Heat. So we'll make sure that's our focus.
That's what I'm talking about.
This is business, and he's taking it very, very personal. Yep.
I love that.
That had a certain La Familia Godfather feel to it. Like, nah, this is just business.
And that's too. Yes,
I
don't know him.
I don't care about him because that's classic. Like that's classic second language, like being phrased in a way that sounds inflammatory, but it's not. He's just simply saying, I am not at all concerning myself with the one-on-one matchup, but it's gonna look like bulletin board material when they put it up there with the I don't care about him. And that's not what he means. He means
I'm gonna run real quick and jump in on Tatum.
Okay, he means there's nothing to do. Like this has nothing to do with the KP versus Bam matchup. Like, I don't care at all. Right.
And I love that he misunderstood another question. Well, I think he misunderstood a part of it when he said, "Wait, is Jimmy out for the whole series?" And they're like, "No, I just mean like in this game." He's like, "Oh, okay." And then when in his answer, in his response to mention Bam as sort of like one of their go-to guys because Jimmy's out of the mix. I love that response all overall because like, yeah, okay, Bam may get more touches. Yeah, he's in the mix more, but I mean, it's us against them. It isn't, oh, I got to make sure I lock down Bam or we got to make sure like, no, like we're going to beat all of them, And I think that's sort of been Joe's message always, throughout the course of the regular season and just facing your matchup and, staying in the moment, not looking ahead, not whether it's a win or loss, not dwelling on the past, and I just think that Kristaps really embodies that in terms of someone who obviously doesn't have a whole lot of playoff experience. But, man, his first playoff game here at TD Garden, I thought he was tremendous, and for what he said about Jason Tatum doing a little bit of everything, getting a triple-double, it was such a special performance. Like, he just loves being a part of that. He just loves what this team is doing and their mental focus right now. So, from someone who doesn't see the clip and reads that, they'll be like, oh, whoa. He's taking shots at Bam, but like, no, if you're in that room, you knew it wasn't like, oh, I don't give a damn about Bam. Like, no, I don't care about any of those guys. I'm worried about me, my team, and what we're trying to do. And yeah, I love what Kristaps said today, especially after this performance and after this game one victory.
There it is. And that's it. Game one victory. Celtics 114-94. Take down the Heat. Comfortable. What? I didn't do that. Comfortable, easy. It just happened. It just rowboat its way onto the screen. I think producers behind the scene were trying to remove it, and it popped up. But anyway, big win. Nice little gap here. They're back on Wednesday, and then headed to Miami, where again, hopefully, make short work of this, and then move on here.
Bobby's trying to get a third night in Miami. I think the way he's talking about.
No, one trip, Jimmy. This team has to. There better be one trip because if something like they're supposed to win this in 5. Like my prediction says, there's no second trip.
Back in Boston.
Yeah, exactly. It should be 4. And again, like I said, my prediction, I wrote 4, had written the whole thing, and I was like, I'll just mess around and I'll call it 6, just to put a little blood in the water here.
But you know what, though?
I still think it's very possible. Very possible. The next game is huge to me, just in terms of a lot of things. Mentality of the Celtics going forward, how they view things. If they come out and go about their business in the same manner, even if the shots aren't falling, and then maintain the patience to go through, getting the best shot, working the ball, not forcing the issue, not settling while continuing to play defense, they're great. But if it's one of those, well, the shots aren't falling, so I'll just shoot more of them type of games, you could see it go in a different direction. So I am curious where it goes, but I do think if they come out the same way they did today in game 2, it could be over in 4 because it shows they're serious. Basically, that's what we want to see, guys. Are they serious or not? Everybody knows this version of the Celtics exists. It's the other version that you don't want to see. Does it rear its head in the playoffs? I don't know. Is it a thing?
I mean, it's part of their DNA, isn't it? Isn't that their characteristic?
That's what you don't know.
Well, I think the
I don't say that to say it's bound to happen, but I mean, we saw a little bit of it in that fourth quarter. If you want to be technical here, But go ahead, Jimmy.
Yep.
I just think the concerns you have about the Celtics are fair concerns. I just don't think the Heat are good enough to take advantage.
I agree.
So, you're going to have those same concerns in the next series against theoretically a better team. Then we can have those conversations, and we might have them because it could end up in a loss. Whereas against a Heat team, I don't know if they're good enough or if they're going to be close enough in the scores to be close enough for them to overcome it.
I think that's the best point, Jimmy. It's the Heat just don't have the horses at the end of the day. Certainly not to win the series, but you wonder how many games that they can win there, but they don't have the horses. And so the Celtics can play an imperfect game, let some of the bad habits creep in. And I think it'll be really hard, but we are going to wrap it. We are back on Wednesday. We thank you guys for hanging out with us. Here, game 1 of the playoffs. Nice crew. Make sure you tell your friends, subscribe to our YouTube channels. Turn on those notifications so you know when we're going live. There will be a lot of off-day garden reports as well. So make sure that you keep it here. Follow all of us on Twitter. Follow Celtics CLNS for updates when that's going to happen. But we're going to be bringing you pretty much daily content here as the Celtics begin their march through the playoffs. Jimmy, can we do the math? They need 16 wins. They got 1. How many we need?
Carry the 1. 15 to go. Okay, 15 to go.
Hey,
don't ask me in the middle of the second round because that's when it starts to get
after they get 3, it gets complicated.
Yeah. This one
you have 16 apples, Jimmy, and 1 gets taken away.
16 minus 1, I can do.
So we will see you guys. I said, we'll probably have some sort of programming the next couple of days to preview. Jimmy Hardhat is back. Next game is on Wednesday. We expect to see you all there and then some. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game. Forfeit's out. I think it's an auction. That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.